TypeScript is supposed to help you catch bugs before runtime, but only if you use it correctly. In this video, we will look at 20 real mistakes junior developers make with broken code, clear explanations, and fixed versions you can use in your own projects. We start with the basics of type safety, because these small shortcuts often become real runtime bugs. Imagine this value comes from an API profile field, and we expect it to be a name. To move quickly, the function accepts any, then calls a string method. Now we run the script with a number and see what actually happens. Let's break down why this failed. The compiler trusted any completely, so it did not warn us that 42 has no to uppercase method. The type error was not solved. It was only delayed until runtime. Now we fix it by accepting unknown instead of any. Unknown forces us to check the value before using it, so the string branch is safe. Now we run it again and get a safe message for bad input and the uppercase result for valid input. The better pattern is to use unknown for data you do not control, especially API responses, local storage, and user input. Then narrow the type before using methods or properties. This keeps TypeScript strict without making your code fragile. Here, the app reads the current user's email, which is common in dashboards and account pages. The function promises a user, but it actually returns null from a missing session. We run the script and the property access crashes immediately. Let's explain the crash. Null has no properties, so user20 email cannot be read. With strict null handling, the type should say user or null, and the code should handle both paths. Now we fix the return type so it admits that no user may exist. The guard handles the guest case before reading email. When we run it, the program gives a safe fallback instead of crashing. The best practice is to keep strict null checks enabled and make absence explicit in your types. Handle null at the boundary, like authentication, API loading, and database lookups. After that guard, the rest of the code becomes simpler and safer. This is a common local storage or API pattern. Parse JSON and assert it as the type we want. The problem is that as product does not check the actual fields. Now we run it, and the total is not a real number. Let's break down the result. The JSON only has a name, so price is undefined at runtime. TypeScript trusted our assertion, but JavaScript still multiplies undefined and gives NaN. Now we fix it by treating parsed JSON as unknown first. The validator checks the object shape before the code uses price. When we run the script, invalid data is rejected clearly. The best approach is to reserve assertions for cases where you already have proof outside the compiler. For runtime data, validate first and only then use the typed value. This is especially important for JSON, storage, forms, and network responses. Next, we separate TypeScript's compile time types from JavaScript's runtime values. In command line tools, values from arguments arrive as strings. Here we pretend the value is a number by annotating it, but the runtime value does not change. Now we run it and get string concatenation instead of numeric addition. Let's unpack the output. TypeScript's number annotation disappears after compilation, so JavaScript still sees the string 5. With the plus operator, string plus number becomes concatenation. Now we fix it with an explicit number conversion. After conversion, we validate the result before doing math. When we run it, the calculation is numeric and prints the expected value. The best practice is to treat every external string as untrusted input. Convert it explicitly, then check that the result is valid before using it in calculations. This applies to process arguments, URLs, form fields, and environment variables. Now we look at compiler warnings as useful feedback instead of noise to suppress. Here, a function expects an object with an email field. The caller sends address instead, and the compiler would normally catch that. But with TS adhered, we run the code anyway, and the function logs undefined. Let's look at the real issue. The function contract says email, but the caller sends address. The compiler was pointing at a real bug, and TS adhered removed the warning without fixing the data. Now we fix the object shape and remove the suppression. The caller sends email, which matches the function's type. When we run it again, the correct address appears in the output. The best practice is to treat compiler errors as design feedback. Fix the mismatch at the source instead of hiding it. If you intentionally test an invalid type, prefer TS expect error so the test fails if the error disappears. In this section, we look at mistakes where the data shape is too loose. These bugs often start small, but they break totals, property access, and user-facing text later. Here we are calculating a cart total, which should be a simple numeric operation. But the array is typed as any array, so TypeScript allows a string to sit next to real prices. Now we run the script and look at what the total becomes. Let's break down why this happens. The reducer starts with numbers, but when it reaches the string value, JavaScript switches into string concatenation. The TypeScript mistake is that any array removed the check that should have caught this before runtime. Now we fix the array by saying exactly what it contains, numbers. With number array, the total operation matches the data, and if someone adds the string again, TypeScript rejects it. Now we run the fixed version. The better habit is to make arrays describe their real element type. Use number array for prices, product array for products, and avoid any array for real application data because it removes the compiler checks you actually need. Imagine this function prints an order summary after checkout. The parameter is typed as object, so the function has no real knowledge of ID or total, and we end up using a cast to force access. Now we run it with the wrong shape and see the result. Let's unpack the bug. The object type only means this is some non-primitive value, not that it has the fields this function needs. The cast to any silence is TypeScript, so the missing properties show up as undefined at runtime. Now we replace the vague object type with a real order interface. The function now documents exactly what it needs, and TypeScript can reject inputs that do not match. Let's run the corrected version. The best practice here is to model structured data with an interface or a type alias. Use object only when you truly do not care about the fields, not when your function reads specific properties. In real apps, fields like discount codes often come from forms or APIs, and they may be missing. Here, the type says discount code is optional, but the code uses it like a guaranteed string. When we compile this, TypeScript stops us. Let's explain the warning. The question mark on the property means the value can be a string or undefined. Calling a string method without checking first would crash if the value is absent. Now we fix the code with optional chaining and a fallback value. If the discount code exists, we normalize it. If it does not, we show a clear message. Now we run the fixed version. The better pattern is to treat optional fields as truly optional every time you read them. Use a clear fallback when the UI can continue, and use a guard when the next logic requires the value to exist. Now we move into control flow mistakes. These happen when a type can be more than one thing, but the code acts as if only one branch exists. Search results are a classic place for unions because the list can contain users and products. The mistake is trying to read email from every result, even though products do not have that field. When we compile this, TypeScript points directly at the unsafe access. Let's look at the type from TypeScript's point of view. Inside the loop, result may be a user or a product. Because email exists only on the user branch, we need a check that narrows the union before reading it. Now we fix it by using the kind field as a discriminant. Once we check result kind, TypeScript knows which branch we are inside, so email and SQ are both safe in the right places. Now we run the fixed code. The best approach is to give union branches a reliable discriminant field when you control the shape. That makes the code easy to read, easy for TypeScript to narrow, and safer than casting. Payment status is business logic, so every possible value matters. Here, the union includes refunded, but the switch only handles pending, paid, and failed. Now we run it and see the bad fallback. Let's break down why this is more than a display bug. The default branch makes the code look complete, but it silently hides a real payment state. When the business adds another status later, the same mistake can happen again. Now we fix the switch by adding the refunded case and using assert never in the default branch. If a future status is added and not handled, TypeScript can fail the build instead of letting a vague message ship. Now we run the fixed version. The best practice is to use exhaustive switch checks for unions that represent business states. This is especially useful for payment statuses, order states, user roles, and anything where a missing branch creates incorrect behavior. Now we are moving into narrowing and control flow. These mistakes are dangerous because the compiler starts trusting checks that may not match the real runtime value. Imagine we receive API events and only want to process purchases. Here the type guard looks official because it returns a type predicate, but it only checks that the event has some type value. Now we run the script and the total becomes NaN, which means a non-purchase event slipped into the purchase calculation. Let's break down why this happens. A type predicate is a promise to the compiler, but TypeScript does not inspect whether the promise is true. Since login also has a type field, the guard accepts it, and later code reads amount from an object where amount does not exist. Now we fix the guard by checking the discriminant and the field we use later. This version only accepts purchase events with a numeric amount. When we run it again, the login event is ignored and the total is correct. The best practice here is simple. Make the guard check every property your later code depends on. If the next line reads amount, the guard must prove that amount exists and has the right runtime type. Next, we look at object keys and maps. These examples show why TypeScript is careful when we iterate objects or pretend dynamic data is complete. Let's say we have a typed revenue object and want to sum the months. The code looks reasonable. Get the keys, read each value, and reduce the numbers. Now we compile it under strict mode, and TypeScript stops us because key is just a string here. Let's unpack the error. Object keys is a general JavaScript function, so TypeScript types its result as string array. But our revenue object can only be indexed by January, February, or March, not by any random string. Now we keep the key type by telling TypeScript these keys belong to monthly revenue. After that, indexing is safe because each key is known to be a real property. We run the script and get the expected total. The better habit is to preserve key information when iterating known objects. Use Kinkany, a small typed keys helper or object enaries with explicit value types when the object shape is part of your contract. Feature flags are a common place to use maps. Here the code uses record string to Boolean, then looks up a flag by environment. When we run it, staging prints undefined even though the function claims it returns a Boolean. Let's look at the mismatch. Record string to Boolean describes a dictionary shape, but it does not prove that a specific key exists at runtime. The staging key is allowed by the type, but it is absent from the actual object. Now we make the type honest by saying this map can be partial. Since some flags may be missing, the function provides a fallback. We run it again and the result is deterministic. Staging is false. The best practice is to choose the map type based on the data guarantee. Use record with a narrow key union when every key must exist, and use partial record when missing keys are expected and handled. Finally, we move into reusable functions and generics. Good generic types preserve relationships in your code, while bad constraints make APIs harder to use. Suppose we write a reusable first item helper for arrays. Without a generic, the function returns unknown, so the caller may reach for a cast. Here the cast is wrong, and when we run the script, the string value is treated like a number and crashes. Let's explain the real problem. The helper receives an array of strings, but its return type does not remember that. The unsafe cast hides the compiler warning instead of modeling the function correctly. Now we make the relationship explicit with a generic T. If the input is string array, the result is string or undefined. If the input is number array, the result is number or undefined, and the compiler helps us use each value correctly. The best practice is to use generics when a function returns the same kind of thing it receives. That keeps the API reusable without throwing away type information. Here we are writing a logger that only needs an ID field. The mistake is constraining the generic to user, which brings along email and role even though the function never uses them. When we compile, product is rejected despite having a perfectly valid ID. Let's separate what the function needs from what the domain model contains. The body only reads entity ID, so requiring a full user is accidental complexity, not useful type safety. Now we replace the domain-specific constraint with the smallest shape the logger needs, an object with a string ID. This accepts both user and product while still preventing values that do not have an ID. When we run it, both IDs are logged. The best practice is to constrain generics by capability. If a function only needs an ID, say that directly. Only constrain to user when the function truly needs user-specific fields. In this section, we move to async code and API boundaries. These bugs are common because TypeScript can describe your code, but it cannot make external data trustworthy by itself. This happens in real apps when a developer fetches a user and immediately tries to use it. Here we write the async function correctly, but then we assign its promised result to a user variable. Now we run the script and TypeScript stops us before the bug reaches runtime. Let's break down why this fails. An async function always returns a promise, even when the return statement looks like a plain object. So user is not a user yet. It is a pending operation that may resolve later. Now we fix it by moving the code into an async main function and awaiting fetch user. After await, TypeScript knows the value is a real user. Now we run it again and the fetched user's name prints correctly. The best practice here is simple. Keep promise in the function return type and use await at the boundary where you need the actual data. Apply this every time you fetch from a database, file, or API. It keeps async flow visible instead of hiding it behind incorrect types. This is a classic API boundary mistake. We expect a profile, but the server sends an error object, and the type assertion hides that risk. Now we run it, and the code crashes when it tries to use a missing name. Let's break down the failure. Response.json gives us runtime data, and runtime data can be anything. The asUserProfile assertion only tells TypeScript to trust us. It does not check that name exists. Now we fix the boundary by parsing unknown data into a safe result. The rest of the app only sees either a valid profile or a clear API error. We run it again, and instead of crashing, the code handles the error path. The best practice is to validate data as soon as it enters your app. Use a manual validator like this or a schema library in larger projects. After validation, your typed application code becomes much simpler and safer. Now we move into advanced type modeling. These mistakes are less about syntax and more about designing types that match what can really happen at runtime. In real projects, configuration often starts with defaults and then gets merged with overrides. Here the override is typed as any, so a string replaces a number without TypeScript warning us. Now we run it and the retry calculation becomes NaN. Let's unpack this result. The spread order means overrides wins over defaults because overrides is any, TypeScript accepts the final assignment, but at runtime retries is still the string 3. Now we fix it by treating the raw overrides as unknown and parsing them into partial config. Invalid values are rejected before the merge happens. We run the fixed version and it reports the bad config instead of producing a broken calculation. The best practice is to keep untrusted configuration as unknown until it is checked. Use partial config only after validation proves that each provided field has the right type. This keeps object spreads convenient without letting them corrupt your final object. This bug appears when request input is forced into an enum too early. The enum looks strict in TypeScript, but the incoming value is just a number at runtime. Now we run it and an unknown role gets access. Let's analyze the surprise. Numeric enums have runtime numbers, and a type assertion does not prove the number is one of the valid enum members. The permission check also makes the mistake worse because almost any positive number passes. Now we replace the numeric enum with a string literal union backed by an allowed values list. The request role must pass the includes check before the app treats it as a role. We run it again and the unknown input is rejected. The best practice for API-facing roles is usually a string literal union, plus a runtime allow list. It matches the strings your API actually receives and makes validation obvious. Use enums carefully when you really need their runtime object behavior. Upload screens usually have one current state: idle, loading, success, or error. This version uses separate fields, so it can describe a state that should never exist. Now we run it and the UI prints loading, error, and success at the same time. Let's look at why the type caused this. Is loading data and error are independent, but the business rules say they should be mutually exclusive. TypeScript cannot enforce a rule that we did not put into the type. Now we model the workflow as a discriminated union. Each variant contains only the fields that make sense for that status. We run the fixed code and the UI prints exactly one valid state. The best practice is to use discriminated unions when a workflow has mutually exclusive states. The status field tells TypeScript which fields are available in each branch. This makes invalid combinations impossible to compile instead of annoying to debug later. For practice, try to add data to the loading variant in the fixed version. TypeScript should reject it because loading does not own upload data yet. That is the type system protecting the business rule. Now you have seen 20 TypeScript mistakes that can quietly break your code or make types useless. If this helped you, like the video, subscribe to Dev Level Up, and write in the comments which TypeScript topic or bug examples you want next.